Bismillah walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Assalamu alaikum everyone. Today we begin with chapter 5 of the Essentials of Arabic Grammar, the last chapter before we get into the parts of a sentence, how nominal sentences are structured, how they're formed. In today's lesson we'll be taking a look at al-dama'ir, personal pronouns, right? And this is the plural form of damir. Many of you may have already come across how to say he, she, they, right, them, etc. But in this lesson, we're going to take a comprehensive look at the pronoun, because 8 times out of 10, whenever you come across these pronouns, whether in conversation or when you're reading, they'll either be attached or even in some cases hidden, and they don't look or sound the same under these particular circumstances. So in this lesson in particular, we're going to be taking a look at how to identify these pronouns in their detached and attached forms. We're also going to take a look at what role these pronouns play within a sentence when they're attached versus when they're detached by taking a look at some examples from the Quran. If you haven't taken a look at the last lesson where we covered what is probably the most commonly used fragment in the Arabic language, then go check that out. To get a copy of this text, click the link in the description below. You'll help me to publish more free beneficial content, and you'll help me further my own personal studies in the process. If you've benefited from these videos in any way, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like and share button, because it helps it reach other people who might be able to benefit as well. So let's jump right into it. So we see here some asma don't have any indication. All the signs you've learned have taken a vacation. If what you find in these categories align, then have no doubt that it's an ism by design. So in each section of this chapter, we're going to be taking a look at some very important pronouns that don't show the common signs of a typical noun, but they're all nouns nonetheless, and they play a very key role in the Arabic language, and they make up a very large percentage of the vocabulary of the Quran. So specifically with the personal pronoun, they're used in many contexts and can refer to people, places, and objects. Also, some basic but key points to keep in mind about the pronoun. So if attached to a fi'l, don't be disturbed. It is nasb like every object of a verb, right? We're going to take a deeper look at this and get a clearer picture once we look at the verb in the next few chapters, inshallah. Attached to an ism, it's taken as its own. Its state is jar, even if it isn't shown. And I briefly touched on this in the last lesson, that whenever a pronoun is attached to an ism, it automatically forms an idafa fragment, this form of grammatical association in the Arabic language. And as a result, this pronoun takes on the role of a mudaf ilayhi, which means it's in the state of jar. So munfasil, derived from the root fasala, right, to separate. So if you've taken a glance at a book in Arabic, you might see faslun, for example, meaning chapter. So if it's munfasil, meaning that it's alone in its natural state, not attached, not hidden, then its state is rafa. This is something that is known. When a pronoun is attached, we say it's muttasil, from the root wasala, to connect something. Don't worry too much about the Arabic terms. The most important thing is that we're able to identify them and we understand how they work. So on page 18, we see a chart of all of the pronouns here, right? In first person, second person, and third person form. And on page 19, there's a chart here of all of the pronouns in their attached forms. So in their normal detached state, huwa, huma, hum, hiya, huma, hunna, anta, antuma, antum, anti, antuma, antunna, ana, nahnu. This should be memorized. All of the charts in this section, which we'll be working our way through, should be memorized for the simple fact that they play a key role in almost every Arabic sentence. So let's take a look at the first example here. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Qul huwa Allahu ahad. So qul, say, it's a command. Huwa, he, say, he is Allah, the one, the absolutely unique, right? Ahadun. So huwa here, third person pronoun, detached, right? Munfasil. And huwa Allah, this is a complete sentence on its own. A very basic sentence structure in the Arabic language. 2 words, right? And we're going to be taking a look at this in the next chapter. But huwa being detached, among other things, I can tell that this is in the state of rafa, right? If it's munfasil, meaning that it's alone, its state is rafa. This is something that is known, right? Now, another thing to point out with huwa that goes for the other pronouns as well. Even though it's in the state of rafa, there's no dhamma, right? Or dhammatain. There's also no al at the beginning, right? So again, veering away from the common signs of a typical ism. And even though there is no al, and this goes for all of the pronouns, they're definite, right? So taking a look at the next ayah, when we see huwa attached to a word, it can take on two different forms, right? So Allahu yabda'ul khalqa initiates creation, al-khalq, thumma, meaning and then, yu'iduhu, and yu'idu is a verb. And we're going to get into the signs of the verb, but first we have to master the ism, right? And because we don't have that capability yet, I'm going to point them out inshallah. So we see at the end of yu'idu, the attached pronoun form of huwa, right? The waw is dropped, just hu. Yu'idu, to repeat, right? So thumma yu'iduhu, then he repeats it. So huwa, it can refer to people, places, and objects. So if an object is feminine grammatically, if an object is masculine grammatically, then we use the corresponding pronoun. So it's not then he repeats him. No, based on the context, then he repeats it. Thumma, then, ilayhi turja'un. So this is the second instance of huwa in its attached form. So what's happening here is that two words have merged. Ila, right? The harf jar plus huwa. So thumma ilayhi, then to him turja'un. You will all return. Let's take a look at the next example here. Huma, they in the dual form. So both of them. Idh, when. It gives this connotation of like the past. Like remember when this happened? So idh, huma, when they both of them, right, referring to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Abu Bakr radiyallahu an. We know this type of fragment right here, fil ghari, right, in the cave. So ghar, cave. So harf jar and its ism, right? Idh yaqulu, so qala, he said, yaqulu, he says. But again, idh here, like reminding us, as if we're transported to this moment, right? He says, li sahibihi. And again, we know this type of fragment here with the addition being what we just learned about huwa. Li, harf jar, right? For or to. Sahib, right? Companion. So li, sahib, harf jar, and its ism, which is why sahib has kasra at the end. And then we see at the ending, huwa in its attached form. So three different words meshed together, right? Li sahibihi, to his companion. La tahzan, don't be sad, don't grieve. Again, we know this fragment here. Inna Allah, indeed Allah, right? Harf nasb and its ism, indeed Allah, ma'ana. So the word ma'a, with, is included in that list of words that gives an implied idafa. So it takes the ism after it and puts it into a state of jar. And what's connected to ma'a is actually the attached form of the pronoun nahnu, which we'll take a look at the end inshallah. So inna Allah ma'ana, indeed Allah is with us. So just a quick note here about huma. In the dual form, there is no change to its wording to signify masculine versus feminine. It's used for both, right? So whether I'm talking about two males or I'm talking about two females, it's huma regardless. Let's take a look at one more example for huma to see how it changes in its attached form. We see here from Surah Ar-Rahman, فِيهِمَا عَيْنَانِ تَجْرِيَانِ, right? And we took a look at this ayah when we were discussing the dual form, right? So عَيْنَانِ, two springs, if you remember. So فِيهِمَا at the beginning, referring to the two gardens, right? وَلِمَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ جَنَّتَانِ. For the one who fears his Lord is two gardens, right? Fihima, in them both. So we see how it changes here when it's attached to this particular harf. And this occurs not just with the harf jar. This can occur with other words as well, right? And what's happening here is actually two words are merged together. A harf, fi, plus huma. But it changed here being attached with this harf jar. So moving along to the pronoun hum, right? They, the plural form referring to more than two people, places, or objects, right? Ulaika, those people, right? And we're going to be taking a look at ulaika in this chapter as well in the next section. So don't worry too much about that. Ulaika, those people, alayhim, upon them. This is the harf jar. ala plus hum. This is hum in its attached form. At times, again, not only with the harf jar, this can occur with any word, right? How it's attached will change. Otherwise, it stays the same when it's attached. For example, I could say kitabuhum. It looks the same when it's muttasil, right? Attached versus when it's munfasil, detached. But just like in this case, there are times when it's attached and it changes to him. So those people, upon them are salawatun, blessings. Min rabbihim, min rabbihim. Min harf jar. Rabbi, it's ism, right? So it's in the state of jar, and connected to Rabbi is him, right? The attached form of the pronoun hum. Wa rahmah, right? And mercy. Wa ulaika, and those people, humul muhtadun, right? Hum. And here we see a dhamma on the meme only for flow. Humul muhtadun. We don't say hum al muhtadun when we're reciting the Quran, right? Humul muhtadun. And then we have here the pronoun hiya, meaning she. Fa innal jannata. Fa is a harf, meaning so. Inna, right, which we know, harf nasb. Al jannata, paradise. Hiya al ma'wa. It is the abode. And hiya is used here because al jannah is feminine, which we know because it has a ta marbuta at the end, right? Easy way to tell. Here we see, and you can go back and take a look at the rest of the ayah, but here, taking a look at this particular spot, lahum, and this lam here, not the lam of tawqeed, not the lam of emphasis, this is the lam that is used to signify like ownership or possession of something, right? So lahum, we see hum attached to it, they have, or I could say lahu, he has, lahuma, they both have, right? Here, lahum, they have or they will have. Allah Ta'ala speaking about those who believe and do righteous deeds. Fiha, we all know the harf fi by now. What is connected to it is the attached form of the pronoun hiya, right? Again, referring to Jannah. So fiha, lahum, fiha, they have in it. Azwajum mutahhara, as-sifa wa mawsuf fragment. We can skip over huma in the chart because again, it applies to both masculine and feminine words. Here though, we see hunna, which is they in the feminine form. Taking a look right here, hunna libasun lakum. They, referring to a group of women, are libasun, right? Libas, a garment. They are a garment. Lakum, right? And kum is the attached pronoun form of antum, which we're going to take a look at shortly, inshallah. They are a garment for you all. And you all are libasun lahunna, a garment for them. So it's attached to lam here. Doesn't change in some cases, right? And in this case in particular. But looking at this example here, we see fihin, in them, yani jannat, gardens, are khayratun hisan, beautiful, good companions. And then we move on to anta. Anta meaning you in the masculine form. Allah mentioning to us here, qulna, right? We said, la takhaf, don't fear. Innaka, harf nasb, inna, right? Connected to this kaf here. And this kaf is the attached pronoun form of anta. Indeed, you, anta. We see here again in its detached form. Indeed, you, comma, you. Anta, you will most definitely be triumphant. So we see it in both the attached and detached form. And then we see here antuma, meaning you in the dual form, right? So you two, both of you. And just like huma in the dual form, there is no change between the masculine and feminine, right? So whether we're talking about two males or two females, it's going to be the same. So we see here bi ayatina, and this is three words together. The harf jar, ba, right, meaning in or with. Ayati, right, in the state of jar, so signs. And connected to it is the attached pronoun form of nahnu, which again we're going to take a look at inshallah. So bi ayatina, with our ayat, with our signs. Antuma, You two, meaning Moses and Aaron, Musa and Harun, alayhima as-salatu was-salam. See how that works? Upon both of them be peace. Alayhima as-salatu was-salam. Waman, and those who ittaba'a, follow. Kuma, right? And this is antuma in its attached form. Kuma, right? And those who follow you both. Al-ghalibun, they will triumph. So we see it in its detached and attached form here. Very important to know how to distinguish the two. And then we see here antum, you all, the plural form. Udkhulu, enter. Al-jannata, paradise. Antum, all of you. Wa azwajukum. We know the word azwaj, right? The plural of zawj, spouses. And connected to it is the attached form of the pronoun antum, right? So we see it in both of its states here. It's detached and attached form. You and your spouses, plural, right? Tuhbarun, rejoicing. Then we see here anti, you in the feminine form. So if I was talking to a female, I wouldn't say anta, right? I would say anti, you, in the feminine form. I don't believe it's in the Quran in its detached state. However, you do find it in its attached form and in its hidden form. And we're going to take a look at the hidden form when we look at the verb. Qala, he said, innama. And innama is used to make something exclusive. In other words, only, right? Innama, and this is the pronoun that we're going to take a look at. Ana, meaning I, right? First person. Innama ana, I am only Rasulu Rabbiki. I'm sure all of you know how to identify this fragment here. A messenger. Rasulu, and Rabbi has connected to it the attached pronoun form of anti. So when Mary, alayha as-salam, was given glad tidings of Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him, alayhi as-salatu was-salam, this angel said, قال إنما أنا رسول ربك. I am only the messenger of your Lord, right? You in the feminine form, the attached form of anti. لِأَهَبَ لَكِ. And this lam here means for or to, right? To give to you, again in the feminine form, right? Anti. غُلَامًا, a boy, a child. زَكِيًّا, a pure boy, right? Mawsuf was sifa fragment here as well. So we see here, antunna, all of you in the feminine form. I wasn't able to find it in its attached or detached form in the Quran. But the attached form of antunna is kunna. Now, if you do find kunna on its own in the Quran, which you will, right, detached, not connected to anything else, this is not the attached pronoun form, obviously, because it's not connected to anything, right? But this is actually what we'll call for now a strange verb. Now moving to the first person form, ana, I. So ana also has two ways that it can be attached to a word. And here we see innani, right? And this is actually two words here merged together. The harf inna, which we know, right? And ana, I. So in its attached form can either be, depending on the situation, ni, or just a ya after a kasra, right? So let's take a look at this. So Allah is telling Musa alayhi salam, Moses, innani, ana, in its detached form, right? Indeed, I, comma, ana Allahu, I am Allah. La ilaha illa ana. There is no ilah, there is no deity, no God except me. Fa'budni. We see this harf fa again. So, u'budni, right? Worship me. Wa aqimis salata. And establish the salah, establish the prayer. Li dhikri. For my remembrance, right? So this is actually ya at the end here, right? لِذِكْرِي. So this is ana, right? Two attached forms. And we see the last pronoun here in the first person form, nahnu, meaning we. So nahnu on its own detached form, pretty straightforward. And we've already seen it attached to a few different words so far, right? But let's take a look here. Inna, right? Again, this is the harf inna merged with this pronoun. So we see that a lot, right? Indeed, we. So this na at the end is the attached pronoun form of nahnu. And this is Allah Ta'ala referring to himself. And they often refer to this in English as like the royal we. So not we as in multiple, right? Nahnu. We see it in its detached form as well. So indeed, we nazzalna, again attached, right? Nazzala is a verb, right? So nazzalna, we revealed. Al-dhikra, one of the names of the Quran, al-dhikr, right? We revealed the Quran. So there's this emphasis there. Inna nahnu nazzalna al-dhikr. We revealed the Quran. وَإِنَّا لَهُ لَحَافِظُونَ. And we see here this lam of tawqeed, right? With inna. And with that, we complete this lesson. In the next lesson, we'll be taking a look at another set of very important pronouns that are used in the Arabic language. So I'll see you in the next lesson, inshallah. وَصَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَى سَيِّدِنَا مُحَمَّدٍ وَعَلَى آلِهِ وصحبه وسلم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم.